All right, so let's move forward to Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu's Birdman. Now, this is going to be one of those films that, definitely right now as we're kind of gearing up to award season, people are going to talk about a lot. And I think it should be talked about a lot. It's about the former superhero played by Michael Keaton, who used to be Birdman, who in real life used to be Batman, and like this whole metaphor thing that's going on. It's a little trippy, but at the same time, you can really follow the story. And I think that Alejandro, as the director, he needs to get a lot more praise because, as a director, to have this vision and to execute it, in such a great way, I think that that's why the film is so great. Granted, the performances are excellent, which we can get into, but I definitely think that the direction is there. And as you guys know, just these long takes with the seamless, you can't really tell that it's edited because they go into the dark or whatever the case may be. But I just thought it was genius, and I've never seen it where in a long take we push forward in time. Yeah. And there's what happened, you understand that, okay, time has moved forward, but it all felt seamless. Yeah. What did you guys think?
Well, like you said with the cinematography, the whole thing, or 90% of it, I guess, takes place in this theater, like the St. James Theater on Broadway. I don't know if they actually filmed the entire thing in there, but, Emmanuel Lubezki, who did the cinematography, I guess, for Gravity, is the guy that did this, and the same idea, like he did in that film, with these long sort of takes where there's no break. And I guess the movie, the most astounding thing to me was that, the illusion of one long take, like you said, where there are time lapses and like using different devices and hallways and doorways to sort of lapse that time, or looping around a room, and then you just get the sense, oh, it's like an hour later, and as they're preparing for this big play. And
right.
And then, of course, the performances are phenomenal. I thought all around, in every category, this film sort of encompassed the strongest of each. The technical, the acting, directing, script was all phenomenal. I loved it. I love that movie.
Definitely. Hamilton.
Conceptually, I thought it was really great. I wasn't the biggest fan of it overall.
I love Hamilton. Maybe he always comes in with it was great, but yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
As a movie, it wasn't one of my favorites, but the cinematography, the concept, just the way that it was done was amazing and absolutely worth seeing, if only for that reason. The whole sort of existential theater world, maybe I'd have to be in that world to really get it, the stage, but it's definitely unique.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now see, you might not know this, but in high school, I was a thespian. So
I believe it, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I could kind of see, honestly, I don't know what they do on Broadway, but I love the fact that because of the long takes, there was pressure in real life on the actors to get it right, while their characters on screen have the pressure to get it right as well. So that both of them coming together, I kind of felt like, yeah, maybe this is what it's like behind, the screen on Broadway. And that's kind of the things that I love, because they had their, if you want to call it incestuous drama that was happening amongst the cast, right? And it would be like, they put on the show, they turn on, and then as soon as the curtain comes down, it's back to that drama, Yeah. So I really felt like that was cool, and that's what kind of drew me into the ensemble, because you just kept kind of riding with them, and like the this is me behind the curtain, it's not like what we would usually see, which is sitting in the audience, wow, that was such a great performance, but instead it's like, that was a great performance, oh gosh, there's actually
everybody's really crazy.
Yeah. Exactly. But let's talk about some of these performances. You got Michael Keaton, Emma Stone, Edward Norton, Zach Galifianakis, Naomi Watts. I felt like everybody just really brought it in this film. Emma Stone just made me feel like, why are you doing like The Amazing Spider-Man? Like, you need to keep doing films like this, because like she really did do a great job. But enough of me, you guys. Hamilton, what did you think of performances?
they were all spot on, really. Like you were saying, both their on-stage performance as well as their film performance, there was a distinction, and it just really, really worked. They were all unique characters. It wasn't confusing, which I attribute a lot to the performances of the actors, because it could be a very confusing film.
Right.
And everybody kept very consistent while being entertaining.
Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, I felt, like the entire film kind of had a split personality. You know, all the characters, with the exception of Emma Stone, because her character was not on stage for anything, and, she's sort of struggling to reconcile with her dad, who's going through this crisis, who I think Michael Keaton's, I can't think of a performance of his that moved me as much as that, and just like you said, the parallel to his real career. Like they even lined up the timeline with his his big Birdman career was like '92, which is when he did when Keaton did his last Batman movie.
Right.
So I'm sure there was something very personal about it to Keaton too, which probably drove a lot of the performance. But yeah, I mean, certainly Keaton, like you said, Hamilton, everybody was spot on, and Edward Norton's performance was amazing.
Right.
Even Galifianakis playing completely against type as the voice of reason. Galifianakis is the voice of reason.
Right.
If you've seen any Hangover movie or any other movie he's been in, that's not what would come to mind when you think of Galifianakis.
Right.
I just thought the movie was full of surprises, and the performances just brought it home totally.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I just loved Edward Norton and his character. He just seemed like a jerk. Like it felt believable. Like this is what a Broadway ego looks like, But then at the same time, it was funny because like they don't take themselves too seriously. Like him, getting the tanning and then having like a fight, Like
Yeah, right. I forgot about that part.
that was pretty awesome. But one of the things that I did kind of enjoy is just seeing like we're in Keaton's head, right? Or Birdman is in his head, so therefore like we're kind of there too. And there's this question of like what's real and what's not. So from the beginning, like he's floating in air, and so it's kind of like, okay, this is gonna be different. But then like suddenly like the regular rules of the world apply to everything. But then like again, like he'll be able to go like this and break a lamp, and then like suddenly when someone comes into the room, it's like, oh, he just knocked everything over.
Right.
So I love the kind of playing with reality that was done in the film as well.
Yeah.
And it's never quite resolved either.
Right.
With the ending there.
Yeah. And that's great because it's like it doesn't necessarily have to. It's kind of like under the skin in the sense of some things you're just like the whole time you're just like, what is going on? Like, and I think in film, sometimes not everything has to be explained. And that, maybe going back to Interstellar, is what I think kind of messed Interstellar up, that everything had to be explained.
Right.
But sometimes, like, we're smart enough as an audience and as, viewers to say, okay, I'll go with it,
right. Without feeling like it's a cop-out. Like they've built up this story that they can't, they're writing a check they can't cash.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're just like, well, like the end of The Sopranos.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, so just in terms of technically, you did kind of hit that, but the cinematography, you definitely have to throw that into the awards, circle, because to be able to do these long takes, which they go from one room to another, and the lighting scheme doesn't change, or I'd say it changes, but obviously everything looks great.
Notice it changes,
you don't notice. Everyone was in focus puller, everybody is working together. This film technically, is just like a marvel to watch. And, as a filmmaker myself, I understand that, like, what really went into making that happen. It just doesn't happen like that, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't just say, okay, today we're going to shoot this long take. Like, that's a lot of pre-production, a lot of planning, and like I said, like, for the cinematography to be that on point, it's amazing, incredible.
Yeah.
Any geek out thoughts on the technicality of the film?
Well, I think the big thing was the cinematography, like we talked about, just that using, people a lot of the times equate great cinematography with this expansive, like panoramic stuff, like vistas, and I think it's just as hard in narrow spaces and, like you said, moving around rooms and having everything in focus and the lighting and everything like that. So I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. Final thoughts.
I'd have to mention the CG because you don't see it, but there has to be a lot of CG there with the editing and with the hidden stops between the take to make everything seamless. That it's one of those instances where people complain about CG when it's so obvious and then don't realize when it's doing a really good job to get that final product.
I would have to, I'm gonna have to, I wish I had a fact checker because I have a feeling that like most of those stops could have been done without any CG. I mean, there was some.
I feel like I read an article about it. I don't remember where, so I can't back that up. But I know there was a lot of behind the scenes with the editing and computer generated. But
yeah,
we could do an hour just on Birdman.
Yeah, I know, right? But we can't. So let's move on to Foxcatcher.